This podcast is separate from my role as an attorney. However, it is my job to educate, entertain, and teach, and to put it into context for you. And we have an update on the Bryan Kohberger matter. Let's take a look.
But this is what we know. New information today in the Bryan Kohberger trial as well. This is what we know.
I know these times are busy, but if you have a minute, go ahead and click the like button below, and we can get this out to more viewers just like you.
Kohberger, of course, is the man accused of stabbing those 4 University of Idaho students to death in their off-campus house in November of 2022. Well, that house is set to be demolished later this month in just a matter of weeks. Now, though, Kohberger's defense team wants to visit the home one more time. So
I think the defense is objecting to this house being demolished. Or maybe they've worked out some kind of an agreement where you can demolish it, but we need one more look through it, which is probably just prudent to do. They're doing their due diligence on the property, and then they can say, well, we did one more look through it, one more scan of the property.
You know, the victim's parents, Nicole, also expressed concern about tearing down the house before the trial got underway here. Do you think that could impact a jury? Because I was reminded today, and you might remember this as well, there in South Carolina earlier this year, the Alec Murdaugh murder trial, the day jurors rendered their guilty verdict upon Alec Murdaugh, the jurors got to go to the alleged scene of the crime and take it all in. The day they rendered their guilty verdict here, the jury won't get that chance.
I'm thinking back to the O.J. Simpson trial, where the jury went into the O.J. Simpson house, looked through it, and really probably made a not good decision, but they probably made their decision based on that.
It's a good idea just to be on the safe side for the defense team. And quite frankly, I feel certain that the prosecution has done the same.
I'm sure the prosecuting side's been all through this, up and down, backwards and forwards, because as a crime scene, they have that authority to do that. Right. And they mentioned the Alec Murdaugh trial, and they say as soon as they went out to that property, which, if you can remember from the Alec Murdaugh trial, it's kind of a creepy property, at least. It's in the woods, you know, it's like it's all confined. There's trees everywhere. And it seems like a podcast type of a crime scene. It reminds me of the Bodkin on Netflix, and they're out in Ireland, and the guy's like just super stoked on podcasts. I'm just imagining that guy going out to the Murdaugh trial or Murdaugh property and just being like, this is perfect for this podcast.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point, because it can be a very different feeling for the jurors to actually experience the space, just like it is for the lawyers who are going to actually experience the space for themselves as they prepare their measurements, their exhibits, their photographs.
Does this help the defense? Because it takes away that like gut instinct of, you know, the visceral experience of going into a place where somebody has been murdered, wanting to hold somebody, accountable, because there's this gut reaction of entering into this place where this horrible thing took place. Let's go ahead and get back to the video here.
Like to use in trial, certainly if it's destroyed before trial, you can't ask the jurors to go through and do a walkthrough or to experience the scene for themselves, which can be, especially in a case as horrific as this one, an incredibly emotional experience.
Yeah, so we know this kind of tour, what have you, is happening today and tomorrow. You don't think
I'm covering her up.
Going to step in here and get a court to block the demolition, do you, before the 28th? Is there anything afoot here with that? Why would anyone do that if they wanted to?
If they decided to do that, it's because they believe they might need the house, the space, the crime scene, if you will, available for inspection either by the court or by potential jurors in the future, or because they're still gathering information and want to further work on their crime scene diagrams or collecting information about the crime scene to prepare for trial. So it's not impossible. It could happen.
All right, Nicole DeBord, as always, we do appreciate your time on this Thursday night. And I keep...
When you say they, are you talking about the judge decided? Probably I'm assuming the judge is deciding, or the owners, the parties are going to have to agree. Hey, we don't need the crime scene. Or the judge just says, hey, you guys didn't agree? Like somebody doesn't want to do the crime scene. I don't care. Or I don't care. That's not the best legal way to put it. But essentially, essentially I'm overruling. I'm overruling that your disdain for demolishing the property, or your objection to demolishing the property, because the property owner needs it back, and we have enough. You've done enough with the property. We don't need the property for this inspection. We're not planning on doing that for whatever reason. Maybe the defense doesn't want the inspection and the prosecution says, hey, we don't need it. There's enough here for us to do the trial. And so the judge says, we're done. We don't need the property anymore, turning it back over to the property owner. And a lot of times that's fine. The judge could do it depending on the rules. I don't know the rules in Idaho. I don't know if the rules vary different from state to state on this. Probably very likely, I would assume. But Idaho, here it is. The judge says, go for it with the demolition. I don't know. You would think that in some states, there's rules that say, no, we're not allowing the destruction of potential evidence until the end of the trial. I think that probably comes up, but that really hangs it up for property owners where they can't do anything with their property. And as you know, that's a big thing for constitutional situations and property rights. That's the kind of the criminal law sometimes has an intersection with property rights. In constitutional law in property rights are so there's this triad going on of, criminal law, property rights, constitutional law, and how do you balance it all out? And it's already kind of been balanced out for us through case law, because it's not the first time this kind of thing has happened. The interesting piece is the technology and what that's going to look like in the future.
Reminding our viewers, Nicole, we're going to rely on your expertise and insight. Once the trial gets underway, once a date gets set, of course, that remains to be seen. Hopefully in the new year, we'll get a better sense of that. Nicole, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. In the meantime, too, I want to put this statement back up here. Yet another one from the University of Idaho President Scott Green with his reasonings for why the house will be demolished. He says, it is the grim reminder of the heinous act that took place there. While we appreciate the emotional connection some family members of the victims may have to this house, it is time for its removal and to allow the collective healing of our...
What? Okay, what a twist. Yeah, so the university president, I guess, also could have vetoed it. Or this is the weirdest statement ever, but I doubt it. I'm going to go ahead and assume that the president could have vetoed it and then decided not to, and that's why he put out the statement. So this is a university property, from what it sounds like. Because otherwise, why is the president getting involved? I don't know. Is this a property that's associated with the campus? Maybe like off-campus dorm. But yeah, this is just a total curveball for me. I'm not sure why the president would make this statement. Unless the president is saying like, hey, I support this. That would be a very vocal message from a president. So I don't know. It seems more likely that the president is saying that I'm involved somehow. Yeah, and maybe in Idaho there's more of like a city council type of situation where the university is in charge of things that are of property that are on in their jurisdiction. Maybe this was in the jurisdiction of the property versus like, how it's like, this is in the county, this is in the city. Maybe this is on some kind of a university jurisdiction. And that's why they made the statement, but surprised nonetheless. I can remember when I was in school, in college, there were off-campus student housing where the housing was there and it was really only allowed to be rented out by students, which is, makes it feel like a community kind of on campus, off campus of students. So I think that probably is what he's talking about and why he's involved here. Because I can remember I was never in these types of housing myself. I was in a dorm room, and then somewhere that was off campus. It wasn't like student housing, and I think anybody could rent it, but pretty much only students rented it because it was so convenient. And they might have had an understanding where they wanted to rent to college students because it just was kind of college student housing, and it was kind of a nice little community of students. Why would you want to rent these houses? Because all your neighbors are college students and we're rocking out college student housing, that kind of a thing. So he might have had like I said, a veto power there. Yeah. And if you think about it, when that house is there, the other students who are walking by are like going every day reminded of this horrible, horrible thing that happened. I'm with you. It's probably the reason why they wanted to tear this down is because I'm guessing a lot of the students in that area don't feel comfortable or have already moved. And so they're like, if we demolish it, maybe put something else up there, people can move on. When I say people, I mean the university can move on.
Our community to continue there, and of course the 4 victims were so tragically stabbed to death in that house the night of November 13th, 2022. We'll be back in 2 minutes. In the Kohberger case, now, my question to you is, why would the defense need to visit the home one final time before it gets demolished? Strategically speaking, what is in it for them to do that?
Just sometimes being in the physical space is incredibly helpful. And they're going to be the last time. If the home is going to be destroyed, they will never, of course, be able to access that space.
That one thing that could have broke the case, the smoking gun evidence, that is now going to be destroyed.
Again, you can look at pictures, but it's just not the same as being there. The things that you can notice as you're trying to put the case together are just different than you can possibly tell from photographs.
There's always this fear of missing out. I think that there's probably 3 levels. There's one level, which is actually physically seeing it in person, which is going to be really helpful. And then there's a second level of seeing it in VR. And then there's the third perspective, which is your memory. Like VR is good, but it's not going to be the same as literally being there because you're able to use your other senses. The house is going to smell a certain way. The house is going to, you're going to be able to use your eyes in a certain way that you're not going to be able to while on VR. VR is going to be more of a static situation where you're just clicking through. The sense of you're walking through it, you can feel it in your feet. You can feel different things as far as items in the house or cabinetry. And maybe you're allowed to touch it and maybe you're not. You can get more of a sense if you're actually there, more of a 3D sense. That virtual reality at this point, it's good, but it's not going to be as good as if you were there. Your problem is you're going to be at trial as the prosecutor or the defense, and if you don't have virtual reality, now you're going off of your memory. Your memory is not good. And the longer things go, a longer time period, the worse your memory gets. Certain things squeak in the house. Certain noises happen like birds or, maybe there's a train that goes by. You're going to be picking things up with all of your other senses, which virtual reality might not do a very good job of. And then your memory might not do a very good job of, not because you're trying to, but just because that's how memories work. The further things go out, the worse your memory is going to be of it. And you're really going to hang on to some things and some evidence that might not be that important, when the jury might not have any of these unless they actually physically go out there, which now it's going to be demolished, or they have virtual reality. It could trigger something when they saw it in person, when they see it on virtual reality, when they're making their decision. It could.
To access that scene, to make sure that they know what the space feels like. It's hard to get an idea for dimensions when you're not standing in the room, and just look around, take it in, understand exactly where things are in relation to each other.
You say on the safe side, though, wouldn't they have already gotten everything they need? What would be, to look for now? It seems like this is somewhat of a, last ditch. Would you describe it that way or no?
I really wouldn't. I don't think that they're looking for a particular piece of information or a particular piece of evidence. I think what they want to make sure that they've done is understand the space, because as trial happens, you're going to have witnesses testify about things that they uncovered at a certain location in the home, or you're going to hear testimony about where things may have happened in the home. And looking at images of it is just not the same as being in the physical space. And the attorneys aren't going to be able to do that again once the home is destroyed, of course.
Yeah. So say hypothetically they did find something advantageous or disadvantageous to their case. Will it be admissible, you think?
It possibly could be, but again, I would be surprised if they're actually looking for a piece of evidence or something in particular related to the visit. I suspect they really want to understand, what you can see from one angle if you're standing in one room, what you might be able to hear from one location to the other. They might want to see what the lighting is like inside the house, when the lights are on, when the lights are off. I think there are all kinds of things that you can take in if you're just present in a space, as opposed to relying on someone documenting that space in a report, even with solid measurements, even with the three-dimensional engineering type devices that they have to reconstruct a space. Really looking at pictures or secondhand information about what the space is like is, again, just really not the same. It's sort of a second place replacement.
Yeah, we do have a statement in, though.
Does engineering devices mean that they use some kind of virtual reality. Is that what she's saying? Because engineering devices is an interesting term. Never heard that term before. Where at this point, I'm sure that they have really gotten all the admissible evidence out of this place. And so they're probably not looking for additional evidence. I'm thinking to the staircase where they're like, where's the fire poker? Where's the fire poker? And then like weeks, I don't even know how long goes by. And then one of the kids comes home from Christmas and they're like, there it is. The fire poker's in the garage the whole time. And which is so unlikely. Oh, we missed it. But I mean, when they inventory, it's a murder. When they inventory like everything, I mean, I guess they have a lot of stuff in the house, but yeah, they had a huge house in the staircase case. No pun intended. But they had a lot of items, but how do you miss that? How do you miss that? I don't know. So they're probably not going to find a fire poker situation or some kind of a smoking gun evidence at this point. But they're, like she said, it could be like just going through the house and getting kind of a feel of what actually happened, because things come up in your mind and then you're like going, well, did this actually happen or did it not? You know, did it happen this way? Or because if you're really trying to get to the truth is what all the prosecutor and the defense is, so that they can portray their best side of the story of what happened to the jury. And that's really what they're trying to accomplish, is showing their side of the story. When it's not as if they could ever go back and view it in real time. That's why video evidence of what actually happened during the commission of the crime is so powerful and important. It just, you cannot really get better than that. It's the Cadillac situation of evidence. If you can video what actually happened, no matter what the video is, it's going to be more than likely very helpful. Pictures can be very problematic. I mean, you can just have a colored picture versus a grayscale picture, a black and white picture. It could be totally different perspective. I was in a trial one time, and the defense used a black and white picture of a red car, and then the prosecution used a red colored version of the car, and it just showed you kind of what they wanted to see in the in the trial, you know, and just what they wanted to portray to the jury as far as what a red sports car looks like. So that's kind of that's the difference, right? It could be very stark depending on what the actual picture is. And they have rules against that, to where you cannot manipulate a photo. And if this photo's been edited at all, then it needs to be, you know, essentially excluded. If it's a red car and it's printed in black and white, does that change the photo? No, it's just the setting of how you printed it. And you're allowed to change the setting of how you print it. You just can't actually change any of the pixels or do any kind of filter or photoshopping. That would be problematic. Yes, could you change it to black and white filter on the Photoshop? That might be an issue. And an interesting thing is, the courthouse doesn't accept, at least the courthouses that I know of, they don't accept color. So if you want to file something with a courthouse, you're going to have to file it in black and white or grayscale or whatever it is. It's like they don't do color. I think color might be just not part of their system.
As well, from the University of Idaho, just kind of elucidating this here, I'm going to read it. Teams representing the defense for Bryan Kohberger will access the King Roadhouse today and tomorrow, Thursday, December 14th and Friday, December 15th. The defense asked University of Idaho in November for access to the house in December as they prepare their case for a trial, the date of which has not been set. The defense indicated they wanted to take photographs, measurements, and possibly gather drone footage of the house. Nicole, you don't get a sense this is a delay tactic here for the defense team. We don't know the trial. That date has not been set yet. Of course, we're on a trial track here, but that remains to be seen. That's not...
Yeah, so drone footage can be really great footage. You know, it could be, I don't know if you've seen some of like the wedding kind of, they come in with a drone, but it's not going to be the same as virtual reality. It's just not. And bird's eye view, in this situation is going to be helpful for like a map, you know, if the jury to say, okay, this is where it happened. And, you know, this is kind of where from a bird's eye, that's going to be helpful, but not the same as like actually showing up, being at the residence.
Particular case, and they really need to have that information ready to go so that when they construct their exhibits later, they have it. They're not going to be able to get it once that house is gone.
During the trial, did we destroy it when the house was demolished? But at some point it's like, well, we could think about this for the next 3 years. Is there something new that could come up? Well, there's always some new thing that could come up, but at some point it's, you just have to continue. You have to move the case forward. So the measurements, what are these measurements? Are they measuring the rooms? That I would assume they're going to be measuring, exactly what's the dimensions of what happened, the crime scene, and the objects in the crime scene. I don't know exactly what they are going to be measuring that they haven't measured already, but that's I guess what they're wanting to do one more time. Or if they haven't done it already, I'll be shocked, but that's what they're wanting to do. Now I'm going to show you a video that hopefully I can find. You're just going to have to watch. Boom. Imagine this. Did they do this? Whoa. Are we in virtual reality or is this real life? What? So I know like Redfin already has like 3D models that you can like look at. You're like, oh, I want to look at this house. It's not this good though. Did they do this? Because I guarantee you they did something like this. I mean, when I say guarantee, there's no guarantees in life, but you know, it makes a lot of sense. I really hope that they did something like this, because how valuable is it going to be for the jury to literally be like, hey, check out this software. You can play around with it. You can do whatever you want in the house and look at everything. But would the defense object to that? Because maybe the defense is like, it's not relevant. Is it relevant to see every single inch of this house at a later date and time? Do you know what this reminds me of? Is it Google Maps or no Google? Well, either one, right? You can drop like a little guy down and he can see the neighborhood. That's what this is like. So you drop down and you're like, click, 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 and you're clicking through the streets and looking at neighborhoods and everything. That's like this for a house, which is super cool. I mean, it's super cool technology. But what I'm saying is, do we even care if we can have a 3D model like this? And I don't know if they did it or not for this case, but let's say they did. Do we even care if the house is demolished or not? This only captures the inside of the house. It doesn't capture the perspective from the outside of the house to the inside of the house. And, you know, outside of the house looking, and I'm seeing into the house or seeing the house. If it's demolished, then that's the question, because this software is only viewing the inside of the house. Now let's take it a step back with a VR headset. And now we're looking at a virtual reality version of this house from the outside. Why can't we do that? And you're wearing like some Oculus or Apple Vision headset, and you're doing a virtual reality headset. Why can't we do that? I think we can do that right now. I mean, expensive, but these trials are very expensive. Well, if you think about this house, it's totally unproductive right now. Right. Somebody will want to buy this house, not the house itself, because people murder on, but somebody will buy the land, demolish the house, sell it as an empty lot, or build a new house on it. Somebody else will build their own house on it. So the question is this balance of the property owner's rights to have a productive property versus the public's right to have a trial. And weighing which one, and depending on the state, there's probably different rules. Idaho might have different rules than California or Wyoming or New York. Well, you're looking at property on middle of New York, downtown. What's that property right versus cornfield in Alabama or Nebraska? I don't know if they have cornfields in Alabama. What are the property value owner rights for that? You know, because it could be much more productive if you grow corn, for example, versus an apartment this question of what to do in this type of situation. And we've never had this technology before. So this is going to be a whole new area of law. There are going to be cases that don't exist right now where they're going to have to decide these issues. If you want to watch more True Crime with Lawyer Cliff, go ahead and click the video right here, and True Crime continues.